What's up, brothers? I hope that you guys had a good Sunday. Welcome to Mike Your Mentor. Sundays are Sunday sermons where I go ahead and I discuss my life, give you some background of what it was like growing up for me, some of the crazy things that I went through, how I was able to deal with those, and how I was able to, I guess, get my life to where it is now, which I guess you'll understand more as you follow along on this channel. So if you're new to this channel, the reason I started it is just because now that I'm 38 years old and looking back on my life, one of the biggest things that made a difference in my life was the mentors that I had along the way. So this is part of me giving back. I believe every man should have a mentor, and every man should be a mentor to someone who's younger than him. I guess you don't even need to be a mentor to someone who's younger than you, but to another man. So yeah, I started this channel because men are leading lives of quiet desperation. They're dying, not just physically by committing suicide, but emotionally as well. A lot of guys walk around as zombies. You know, we hold these things that have happened in our past inside. We don't tell anybody. We lie to ourselves constantly about how we feel or what we think about certain situations, whether because we don't want to offend other people or because we don't want to appear to be vulnerable, because there's this myth in society that to be strong, you keep it all in and you have it all, or you appear to have it all together. And actually, the more life you live, from my experience, it's quite the opposite. Every time that I'm vulnerable in a one-on-one situation or even on a group situation with a bunch of guys, it's like a battering ram, right? It just blows the doors wide open, and guys are more comfortable to share what's really going on inside them, and it's that little bit of courage, I guess, that sparks it for everybody else, and gives them the confidence to go ahead and do that. So that's part of what this channel is about, is just me being vulnerable about my life, in hopes that men will wake up and decide that today is the day they're going to stop lying to themselves and lying to others, and answer the higher calling that they have on their life. So thanks for tuning in. We'll jump right in here. Share my screen. Make sure I'm doing this right. All right, so here we are on week 2. Last week I kind of gave an overview of my life from when I was maybe born through just a couple of years ago, as we kind of walked through that and discussed what I'd be talking about on these Sundays. So this is Sunday Sermon week 2, and I titled this Father Wounds Part 1. And the reason that I call it a Father Wounds Part 1 is because, as you'll see in this picture, right, this is one of the only pictures I have of my dad. So there's my sister. I think we're celebrating her birthday. And then there's me. And then we had a little brother who's not in this picture. Maybe he wasn't born at the time. But there's my dad. So my dad, well, let me just say this. So my dad, he was probably about 6 foot, maybe 6'1". He probably rolled around 200 pounds, so he was a decent sized guy. My dad was extremely young looking for his age, and I could be wrong, but if my memory serves me correctly, he was 20 years older than my mom. So he was 36 when he met my mom, and I believe she was 16. If I have the story right, Mom, don't be mad at me. You can correct me later. But my point in saying that is he didn't look his age whatsoever. I guess that's where I get it from for myself. Because people tell me I got a baby face all the time, or they can't believe how old I actually am. So Dad was in and out of my life at a young age. He served three different sentences in prison for drugs, for trafficking, and that was when I was younger. I don't think it was as hard on me because he was he wasn't there. My mom was there. Um, I didn't really realize what was going on. My mom would take us to the prison and see him. And I remember, just like in the movies, picking up the phone and talking to him through the glass. And then when he got moved, I remember to a different prison. We could actually visit him out in the yard, and we'd sit at a picnic table and talk to him for a little bit. And then me and my sister would run off and we'd play on the playground while my mom and my dad talked. So up until the age of, I want to say, 7 or 8, my dad was away for a lot of those years. And I don't think I thought about it much, to be honest with you. And then when there's a gap there, right, between the last time that he got out and what I remember. I don't remember him being around much. I shouldn't say, I don't remember him being around a lot after that, right? So like part of his thing, like with his last time in prison, is when he was just about done with his sentence, he got moved to what's called the halfway house. And so it would be, how can I explain this? There used to be this place downtown, and he would stay there, and he was under supervision. So he had to get a job, he had to take care of himself, he had to do certain things, and he had a curfew when he wasn't working. But my mom would take us there maybe every other Sunday, and she would pick him up. We'd wait for the gate to open, he'd come out, we'd pick him up, and then we'd go to this mall in downtown Grand Rapids. There was this mall inside this building, and what I remember from that mall is three things. One, there was McDonald's there, so we'd always get McDonald's. Two, there was a train that hung from the ceiling that we would ride around in, me and my sister, and sometimes my dad would get in there and ride around with us in that. And then three, there was an arcade in this place. So we'd go there, we'd hang out a little bit with my dad, and then we'd go to the arcade, and or I would, and I'd play video games, and my mom and my dad would talk. And it was never really sad for me leaving that. There was one time, though, I remember it was really hard on my sister when we had to bring my dad back, and she didn't want him to leave. She wanted him to stay. And my mom pulled away in the car, and my sister was screaming and crying profusely. And so my mom stopped the car, and my sister kind of got out and chased my dad down the sidewalk until he turned around and scooped her up in his arms. So that was a very sad. I guess it's kind of a sad memory when I think about it. So the other thing about my dad, right, is he had this tattoo on his arm of an F, like an outlined F, but I don't know what type of font it was. But I remember asking him one time, what does that mean? And he said it was for Frenchie, and Frenchie was his nickname that he got from his friends. And the reason they called him Frenchie is because, as he told me, he was really good with the ladies. So as I got older, I came to understand, what that really meant. And my dad, he was a womanizer, and that played out in his life. Something that I don't know him that good, so I don't know how he dealt with that. But it was very apparent as I got older. So there's this gap between when I was 7 and maybe later, maybe 8th grade, and I'll get to this story in a second. But the way that not having a dad manifested itself in my life and played out was when I got older, like in 5th and 6th grade, I became extremely emotional. And what that looked like is I remember 2 situations. The first one was I was in my class, and I remember 6th grade class, and we were allowed to listen to headphones while we were doing work. And this one day I had these headphones on, and I was listening to these songs, I guess these depressing songs. Now that I think back on it, and I just got really sad thinking about my dad not being there in my life. And I played a lot of sports, and I was back then. It wasn't very common for uh, both parents not to be there. So I was usually one, if not the only one, of the kids that didn't have his dad there, and I couldn't understand, and it hurt. And I started dwelling on that, and I ended up going in the corner where we had this computer desk, and I pulled the chair out from underneath the computer desk, and I crawled underneath the computer desk and sat there, and then I pulled the chair in behind me, and I sat there for I don't know how long, maybe 20, 30 minutes, just bawling my eyes out until the teacher realized that I was gone, and everyone was looking for me in the class, and then they found me under there. The second thing I remember is during that same year, there would be times where these emotions would boil up inside me, and I would just get up in the middle of class and run outside onto the playground, and kids would press their face up against the glass and watch me as I would just cry and scream at the top of my lungs, just trying to let these emotions out that I didn't know how to verbalize or deal with, you know. And I was able to get some help. I started seeing the school counselor. I think his name was Mr. Tower, and that helped me out a lot because we'd play games. He had like this dartboard, and he had this Nerf basketball thing that I really liked, and we'd play. And he'd kind of talk to me about my life, and and ask me about my family and my dad, and how I dealt with that. And it was really really soothing and cathartic to talk and to finally be able to release those emotions in a healthy way. And obviously, sports played a significant role in that as well. So the crazy thing about that, right, is it goes to show that as men, as little boys, and it's true for, I think, for every person, but I'm speaking from a male perspective here, right? Like, we have this desire to be chosen, right? We want to be chosen by our parents. We want to be chosen by our fathers. We want to be chosen by our peers. We want to be chosen by our significant other. It's that deep desire, right, to feel chosen, to feel like you're worthy. And I think that personally, I think that starts before you're born. But I think it really builds during your childhood and your experience with your parents. So that was Pops. To give you an idea of like what it was like, the small times that I hung out with him, is my next memory is actually from 8th grade. And in 8th grade, I played basketball. I was horrible. I remember from tryouts, actually, because there was an A and there was a B team. The coach for the A team made me play this kid one-on-one. The first person to score got to be on the A team, and the other person would be on the B team. And I was lucky enough to get the ball first. So we check the ball up, and I make some crazy move and spin and can't even see the basket, and I end up throwing the ball up over my head, and it hits the top of the backboard, bounces a couple times, and then drops down through the hoop. I can't believe it. I made the team, and the other kid who was way better than me, I don't even know why I was having to play him one-on-one. His dreams got crushed, and he didn't make the A team. And he went on to play a lot of minutes, dominate on the B team, and I became the whipping boy of the A team, the GOAT. Whenever coach needed to scream at somebody, I usually got the blunt of it. Didn't play much, but the reason I bring this up is I'm just kind of setting the stage here. Is we had this game. We went out to Holland, which is a neighboring city, and we were playing them, and I don't remember really if we were winning or losing. In my mind, I think we were losing. We were getting smashed, and I was able to get in for like 5 to 10 minutes at the end for some scrub time. And this was the only game my entire life my dad ever came to. And he was there up in the stands, and I remember getting in, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's on. I'm going to war. And I was like half Dennis Rodman, half LeBron James, half Michael Jordan. I mean, I'm diving all over the floor. I'm getting rebounds. I'm putting back baskets. I'm just doing everything I can because my dad finally gets to see me play basketball, and I want to impress him, right? I want to be chosen by him. And after the game, we lost, and I got dressed or whatever, changed, and we were coming out of the locker room, and man, and I was crying. I was bawling my eyes out. And we're walking to the bus, and my dad comes up next to me, and he's like, "Hey," he's like, "why are you crying? It's just a game." And I don't think I responded to him or whatever. But inside, I was like, "Just don't get it, man." I'm like, "I just want you to be proud of me." And that's tough. Right? Goes back to that desire to be chosen by your parents, by your father. So that's where we'll stop tonight as far as talking about my dad. In the week coming, we'll address some other things that happened in my life. But the way that I want to end this tonight is I actually want to talk about. Come back to this. All right. I want to talk to you about the 5 things that every son needs to hear from his father. And this is taken from something that I do on Friday nights, where I teach from this course that I went through, which is the quest for authentic manhood. Thanks, Clay. Appreciate it, brother. Which really changed my life. So this is taken from that. If you're interested and you're new to this channel, I talk about that course and we go through it. And I teach from it every Friday night, roughly around 8 o'clock. So, right, the first thing that every son wants and needs from his father is time together. Right? We just want to spend time with our dad. Doesn't matter what we're doing, we want to hang out with our dad. Right? When we're younger, it's probably we play, wrestle. When we're older, it's probably get something to eat, or, play video games, or watch a movie, or just bum around. The second thing that every son wants and needs from his father is life skills, right? Those things like how to shave, how to change the brakes on a car, how to cook food, what do you do when you're going to buy your first house, how to save money. Those types of things are important for us as men to instill in our sons. The third thing is we need direction with solid why answers, and I'll give you a perfect example of this. I talked about this, I think it was earlier this week, is, right, like one of my biggest regrets is having sex before I was married. And when I was younger, no one ever talked to me about, I shouldn't say they didn't talk to me about sex. They would just tell me, don't have sex because you don't, because it's what the Bible says. But they never really went into detail. They never talked about the emotional repercussions and the other things that come along with doing that. And so these are the type of directions that you need to be giving your son. And you can't just tell him, because I said so, right? Like, that's a famous line that parents use. They want to know why. And obviously you got to use your discretion as a parent in different situations with that. But my relationship with my son is I don't hold back. I try to tell him, give him as much information as I have about something so that he can discern and make a decision for himself. And he, even when we first talked about sex when he was 8 years old. So the fourth thing is all sons need to know from their fathers or see from their fathers is convictions through modeling. So what I mean by that is, think about this, and this is something you might want to write down. You'll leave in your son what you live in your house. Right? He may not say it, but he's watching. They're always watching. Even if you don't have a son, realize that other men are watching you other teenagers, other boys, they're watching you and seeing how you behave, how you react in certain situations, the way that you carry yourself, the way that you treat other people. You know, it could be even at your work. The younger guys, they're watching how you work. You know, do you respect the boss? Do you give it your all, or you know, do you slack off? Are you lazy? You know, what kind of example are you setting? So just be very conscious of that. I was a perfect example of that. I was always watching what every guy that I saw that day was doing and how they spoke, how they walked, how they carried themselves, how they treated other people, right? Because I was looking for that direction as a man. The fifth thing is, right, sons need to see the dad's heart. And there's three parts of this, right? So the first thing is, or I should say, I'll show you all three and then we'll talk about them. So the first one that sons need to know or hear from their dad is, I love you. It's extremely important to let not only, well, all your kids know that you love them, but especially for young men to know that you love them. The second thing that every son needs to hear from his father is, I'm proud of you, right? And not just say I'm proud of you and leave it at that, but why you're proud of them, what they've done. The third thing is they need to hear what they're good at, right? You need to reinforce in your son what he's naturally good at, what his gifts are that God has given him, right? So that can be reinforced in his mind, and as he grows older, he can have some direction as to where he should go with his life and what he can do. When you're raised and you're not told the stuff that you're good at, you're left to kind of figure that out by yourself, and that involves a lot of guessing, maybe a lot of trial and error. But if you get that reinforcement as a young man, where an older man comes alongside of you and he tells you what you're good at, it's not only good for your self-esteem, but it helps you with the direction for the rest of your life. So that's it tonight for Sunday sermon. If you like what you're seeing, please comment below, or you can go ahead and share this with some other men in your life. Tomorrow we're off to My Life Mondays, where I talk about the things that have happened in my life in the week past and just anything that's been impressed upon my heart. And tomorrow we'll be talking a little bit about forgiveness and its importance in your life. Share a story or two from my life surrounding that. But I hope you guys have a good night, and look forward to seeing you guys the rest of the week. Talk to you later. Bye.